Good evening and welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Klett. So very pleased to be here on this lovely Friday afternoon. And by lovely, I mean it's really actually kind of icky out today. I'm broadcasting live via SHR Media and streaming live on Facebook. From lovely and beautiful Cape May, New Jersey. Welcome everybody in the Facey chat. Mike, Doug, Tony, Lee, Joyce. Hello, hello, hello. My guests today are Andi Buerger. She's the executive director of Beulah's Place. She's returning to Money Talk with Melanie, and I'm delighted to have her. We are going to talk today about how building the wall will help stop human traffickers. So I'm so excited to have her back on the show today. Welcome, Keith. Welcome, Vicki. How are you? In the second hour today, I will have Diane Huth. She's the accidental career coach, going to lighten things up just a little bit. She's going to talk about how we can network our way to career success. And as you might be able to tell, I am losing my voice just a little teeny tiny bit. I've been a bit under the weather, not a full-fledged cold, but just not feeling myself. I discovered something about myself, and I don't know if it's old age or whatever, but what I thought was me just like handling things better and more maturely as I get older, when I get angry, apparently it just manifests itself with a massive headache. Because the last two times, like yesterday, I was really angry about something, but I was like, let it go, it's cool. And I thought I let it go, but my brain and my body were apparently like, no, we're not letting this go. And I had a massive, humongous headache. So I want to thank everybody on my Facebook page who gave me suggestions. For those of you who are listening via download on SHR Media, peppermint oil. I am a true believer now. I've always been kind of an essential oils kind of girl. I use them for various things. I had it in my house to kill ants. I just feel the need to pass along this tip. I had it in my house because I used it to kill ants, and they must really hate it because literally I haven't seen an ant in like 3 years. And somebody said rub peppermint oil on a rag, on a warm rag on your head. I had a headache from 5:30 in the morning until about 8 o'clock last night, and I put that peppermint oil on my head. And I kid you not, the headache was gone. Ted Harvey's in the house. Can't wait to see you next week. Daryl Kincaid, welcome. Carl, Dawn, how are you? And I'm going to Andi Buerger, by the way, is going to be one of the special guests that I have on my CPAC show, which is going to be broadcasting live from CPAC for the very first time. So I'm super excited about that because while I've been at CPAC, I believe for the last 3 years, I've never had the opportunity to broadcast live like the rest of the bigwigs at CPAC. So I am going to have the opportunity to do that, and I'm super excited about that. And Andi Buerger is going to be one of my guests for that show. Speaking of which, I emailed, thank you, Eden Gordon Hill in the house. How are you, Thomas? Welcome, Dawn. By the way, if you don't receive my weekly newsletter, which tells you all about the upcoming shows that I have, all about the upcoming guests. I'm booked for guests all the way out to April 5th, if I'm not mistaken. And I also have a long list of guests planned for CPAC. I have Andi Buerger, who is my second hour guest. This is why I take notes. Okay, let me figure out who I have. Somebody hour two. Wait, let me look. Oh, at hour two during, I didn't write, oh, wait. Let me look. I have to look and see who my guest is hour two for my show. But I have a long list of guests. Here's what's going to happen at CPAC next week. I am going to do my regular broadcast at 5, regular time, only I'm going to be broadcasting live, so you'll see a different background and all of that. Oh, Eric Heron, he's a U.S. special agent and U.S. diplomat retired I'm going to have on my show. Very excited about that. And then there's a long list. I had to go back and look at the newsletter that I sent out. And then there's a long list of mini interviews I'm going to do in order to do a CPAC special, so to speak. Just nailed down today, and I am just really feel privileged and honored that I just nailed down an interview with Mary Ann Mendoza and Steve Ronnebeck. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but they are angel parents. And I just nailed down that interview today. It's going to be a mini interview, but that will definitely be on my CPAC special. I have the one and only Lonnie Poindexter from Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter and the Content of Character series. I'm going to do a mini interview with him, so I'm excited about that. He's just one of my favorite people on the planet. Let's see, who else do I have? Richard Manning, who's a DC insider, going to talk about government. I have pro-life warrior Carly Diadici. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And Brian Maloney. Those are all the people who are confirmed so far. Hey, BZ, welcome to the Facey Chat. How are you? Listen, Eden Gordon Hill said, thank you, congrats on CPAC. I'm proud of you. Eden Gordon Hill, were it not for her, much of my success goes to her, because she's just been such a huge help and such a great friend in helping me get things done and helping me get great guests on the show. So thank you, Ms. Eden Gordon Hill, for all of your help. Mike Fitzpatrick, what's up? I believe Mike Fitzpatrick is the April 5th guest. I don't think that he and I nailed that down yet, but I think he is going to be my April 5th guest on Money Talk with Melanie. So excited. So there's a lot going on. Oh, Lonnie is great peeps, and I am able to get an interview with Lonnie Poindexter, Biff. Can you imagine? Because he's big time, as he points out to me every time he sees. I'm kidding. He doesn't. I'm just clowning him. But, I said, I know that you're going to be really busy, so I need to put this on the calendar. So, yes, I have Lonnie Poindexter. Hello, Thomas Dwayne Smith. How are you? Welcome. If you're not getting my newsletter, so that you know who all is coming up. Now, that was just for CPAC. That's not all the guests that I have scheduled from here out till Easter Biff in April. And I already have the subject matter they're going to be discussing. So if you sign up for my newsletter, you will already know if there's a topic or something you especially want to check out, and you can mark that on your calendar. So if you want to sign up on my newsletter, let me know. Send me a message on Facebook, email me yourself at moneytalkwithmelanie@gmail.com, and I will make sure that you get my newsletter. I am very lucky, Mike Fitzpatrick, that I live in New Jersey, very close to DC, and I get to go to CPAC. I was actually supposed to go to DC this weekend for a pro-life march, but as you may or may not be able to hear my voice, I'm not quite just in pristine condition. I had a massive headache yesterday. I think that was an emotional kind of anger headache, but just to be safe, and I wasn't feeling stellar today. I cannot afford to get sick because, as you guys just heard, kind of have a big weekend next weekend. So I decided to forego the pro-life march, but I will definitely be there in spirit with my peeps in DC and Virginia. So I'm not going to go this weekend. I'm going to wait and go next week. And I was just going to go 2 weekends in a row because, quite frankly, they were protesting, post-birth abortion. Like, you can't, the governor in Virginia, who thinks it's like totally cool to abort babies once they're already born. Like, then me and the parents have a conversation about what to do next. Like, the baby's born, there's no conversation. But anywho, so I was going to go do that. But to all of you who are going, Godspeed to you all. You are doing God's work, and I wish I could be there with you. Pardon me, this weekend. But I'm trying to prepare the voice and get some rest. And my mama found out I wasn't feeling well and told me that I better stay my hiney home. So, which is usual with moms. That was pretty good advice. So anywho, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Welcome to the Facey Chat, Lindsay Alexandria Dawson, a writer in her own right. Welcome, Aaron. We will be right back with a couple of moments. My guest for the first hour is Andi Buerger, Executive Director of Beulah's Place, and we're going to talk about how building the wall is going to stop sex traffickers. Very excited to have her here. We'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Just visit MrCreditRepair.biz. Let their expert credit repair specialist remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service all at our everyday discounted price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
The United States of America is at an important crossroads. Hopefully, the road she ultimately chooses is life. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, the United States has been called the land of the free and home of the brave. But in order for the United States to remain free, she must once again be a nation that seeks the moral high ground, which includes providential guidance and wisdom. The unique American experiment, or constitutionally limited republic, can only remain successful as long as we strive to live by and teach our children to work to maintain our unalienable rights through proper self-governance and being ever vigilant against government efforts to thwart our liberties through indoctrination in government schools, overzealous wealth confiscation, and reestablish the traditional family as an important pillar of society. Also, America cannot expect to remain a republic of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if she continues to promote the death of unborn and newborn babies. America, you are at an important crossroads. I would that you choose life. If not, forget about it. I'm Ron Edwards. Join me Fridays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on AmericaMatters.us and 12 a.m. Sundays on Talk America Radio Network.
Ron Edwards, the new voice of America.
Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Welcome back to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Gotta love Ron Edwards' notebook. Another one of my favorite people. So excited for him. Always love his brand new notebooks. So without further ado, let me introduce to you my first guest. Her name is Andi Buerger. She's returning to Money Talk with Melanie, and I'm delighted to have her. Pardon me. She herself is a victim of severe abuse. She's a highly sought inspirational speaker and international advocate for those who cannot speak for themselves. She travels extensively to create greater awareness of our nation's child trafficking epidemic and devastating costs to America's future as a result of unchecked abuse and exploitation. Andi's energetic, candid style guarantees a memorable experience, which is so very true. She and I were talking off air about another topic that we're probably going to discuss on a different show, and we definitely have a lot of energy about this topic. And without further ado, the one and only Ms. Andi Buerger, how are you?
Melanie, thank you so much. You're so kind. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. It's a delight to be back on your show today.
I'm so happy to have you here. I really am. And I'm going to meet you in person at CPAC. How exciting is that?
I know. How great is that? That's going to be amazing.
That is going to be amazing. So look out for all the awesome pictures, guys. Just saying, because you guys know I'm good for the awesome pictures. So listen, I got an article which I posted earlier. Actually, before I even go into that, is there anything that I did not mention in your bio that you wanted to tell the audience about? Because I didn't mention Beulah's place. Did you want to talk briefly about that, or you want to save it for later, or you want to mention something else that I didn't mention in your bio?
Oh, that's totally fine. Let me just give your listeners and audience a brief recap on that. Beulah's place was founded 10 years ago, and I'm so excited to say we got our first building 2 weeks ago. So our first actual teen community center for at-risk homeless teens, where we'll be able to expand our services and rescue more trafficked kids, abused teens, and other. But we have been just so excited to see what the community is doing in response to our need to get these kids off the street before they take their lives, before they make decisions that will just compound the pain and hurt they've already had. So we offer temporary shelter services, get them through school, make sure they finish high school and get jobs, things like that, and return them to community. So that's one of the exciting things. And of course, still putting our book out there. It should be coming out April 2020. So Fragile Thread of Hope. So looking forward for that as well.
Oh, that's very exciting. And you know, when I looked up, I keep everything as far as just information and data about my show. So I looked to see when I knew you had been on the show before, obviously, but I looked to see when it was, and it was 2017. I had no idea that it had been that long.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That is a long time, Melanie.
I know. It was 2 years ago. I'm going to see if I can find like the exact date, but it was 2 years ago. I was like, are you kidding me? I couldn't believe it had been that long. But that was when you were on the show. And I remember that Beulah's Place was it was April 20th, 2017. Beulah's Place was kind of just starting out when you were first on the show.
Definitely on the ground level, yes. We have been in stealth mode for quite a long time using safe houses,
right.
Volunteer homes, and so we were just trying to figure out if we could get a building, not get a building, and then, literally heaven dropped it from its lap into ours last July, and just finally closed on it a couple of weeks ago. It's an older building. It's going to take a lot of work, but we're going to be able to serve up to 150 teens a day if we need to.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, congratulations. I was reflecting.
Well, thank you.
I was reflecting on that show, and I remembered that you were using safe houses, and you were just basically using like volunteers and people just willing to open up their homes to these teens. And now you guys have your own building. What a blessing.
It definitely is, and we're grateful for everyone that has sent good thoughts, prayed for us, sent donations, all those things, because it makes it possible. And now that I can go out and speak more often and do things, we have people wanting to know, well, how are you doing it? So it's great to be able to talk about a program that works without all the political agenda attached to it.
Indeed. Well, yeah, I think we have plenty of the political agenda going on. We could probably, I think we're good with the political agenda. I think everything is politicized at this point. But I'm really happy to hear about the progress of Beulah's Place.
Well, thank you.
That's fantastic. I saw an article, actually, our mutual friend, Miss Eden Eden, that I mentioned in the open, sent me an article that you and she co-wrote together. That was on the Blue. It's called Blue, the Independent Voice of Law Enforcement. And I'm not sure if it was just, not just, but on the a featured story on the website, as well as on the Facebook page and everywhere else. But it really is an amazing article.
Thank you. They did such an amazing job with the cover, and we are so grateful to everyone over there at Blue Magazine. And it is an actual magazine, and you're right, also online, so anyone can really look it up or find it. But to have a law enforcement-based publication focus on human sex trafficking, and to invite me to be part of that, it was just such an honor.
It's and the article is just compelling. I posted it on my Facebook page. Frankly, I posted it on all my social media. So,
good for you. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I posted it. Well, people need to read and understand what a big problem this is. I mean, just in the news today, what do we have? Just today, R. Kelly arrested, and quite frankly, I'm just going to go ahead and go out on a limb and say, finally. For having sex with an underage girl. During the Super Bowl, you heard all of these stories about how part of the Homeland Security, if you will, was busting human trafficking, because it's such a big problem around these huge events. You have the other gentleman, I don't think they were underage girls, that somebody associated with the Patriots, I don't remember his name, who got busted for prostitution. And you're just like, and not that it's necessarily in the same vein when you're a grown up, but a lot of, women who find themselves in that trade usually many times started out as a victim of human sex trafficking or some type of sexual abuse. Is how they find themselves.
That's right.
In that trade. So.
That's right. It's just an insidious cycle if there's no intervention or intercession, which is, what we try to do is to make sure that when we do rescue a teen, I didn't have anyone to rescue me. I was not protected. So our goal is to hopefully create that bridge to a better life without them going down a different path, like you said, whether it's prostitution, pornography, any of that stuff, or being so vulnerable to somebody who can just sweet talk them into a bunch of lies, and then they end up in another state or a hotel room or places they never thought they would end up in.
Indeed. Now, I want to ask you this. How prevalent is this human trafficking thing, this sex trafficking thing? How and I'm calling it a thing just for because I feel like people hear that, and after a while, when you hear it over and over again, you kind of get desensitized as to how serious it is or what it even is. When we talk about human sex trafficking, and I think it's very important to use that word human, which is why I'm sure that we do, because these are human beings, these are people, and it happens to boys as well, not just women.
Sure.
How prevalent is this?
Well, Melanie, honestly, just the same way as child abuse was, that term many years ago, 40, 50 years ago, nobody talked about it, it happened, but then eventually enough people pioneered and it became something that we talked about. I think that's where we're really at with the human trafficking terminology, because depending on whose statistics that you look at, I would safely say conservatively 1 in 6. Women, teens, children, but honestly, I believe it's a little bit more than that, because how many of you come forward and say, oh, hey, by the way, I've been trafficked, or I was trafficked, or I was transported here or there. You can only go by what you know or by what you think you know, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And you're right. It's boys and girls, male and female. Just actually had a Facebook notice from somebody I don't know personally, but who's connected to someone, and she was followed into a major big box store, whether it was Walmart or Target or someplace, by a man, and she's a grown woman, probably in her 30s, and he kept stalking her basically, and she finally got in his face, and he ran out of the store before the cops could be called. So it's becoming very prevalent because it's allowed. These men right now in the news, they've gotten away with it. Okay, because our culture is saying, hey, no big deal, right? And it is a big deal. We have people that are forever changed, as you and I talked about earlier, that one act, just one act, can change an entire victim's life.
Exactly.
And most of them don't get compensated or get to be on the cover of People magazine.
You're so right. Most of them are invisible, and many people that you deal with, people that you know in your everyday life, you would never know that they had that kind of issue. And I was saying to Andi, and I posted it on my Facebook page earlier today. I was saying to her before the show that there are times when I reflect and wonder, why is it, and I posted this on my Facebook page as well, why is it that grown men think that some men, not all men, and please, there are plenty of good men out here that are doing the right thing and that would never put their hands on a woman. And so I want to be really clear about that I understand that, and that I know that, and that I appreciate you. I want to be clear about that. On the other hand, there are some other men. There are plenty of men. There are many men out there. There are lots of men out there who have no problem with putting their hands on a woman in a sexual way. And I said to Andi that I was pondering why it is that these particular men feel as though they can get away with this, which caused me to reflect on my high school years, when on a pretty much daily basis, one boy or two boys or however many boys, I've always been very curvy. Even when I was tiny, I've always been curvy. And boys put their hands on me daily in a sexual way. And nothing was ever done about it in high school. And I would assume that these boys who got away with this turn into men who think that it's okay when it's not addressed. And it's really a problem. And as I said on my Facebook page, one incident, one major incident, a few small incidents, if you're, after a while, you get desensitized when you're touched in that way every single day, and no one seems to care about that. Your view
That's
of,
right.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, that's right. That's absolutely correct. And I think people are turning a deaf ear, one out of denial, but one out of, well, how can all of these people be, human trafficked? Or maybe they know people doing it and they're not going to speak out for sure on that one. Or maybe they've been victimized and they don't know how to speak out unless they hear somebody else say, hey, I survived. I took ownership for my life. And, here's where I'm at.
And it's true. And the sad part is that now, because of the politicization of so many things with the Me Too movement and everything like that, and frankly, some men getting falsely accused is also a problem.
Yes.
The same reason why, and I say this all the time, the same reason why men do it and think they can get away with it is the same reason why some women lie about it. It's because it's hard to prove. So, there are men who do it knowing that they're going to get away with it. And there are women who lie about it knowing that they're going to get away with it, which is unfortunate because it takes away from real victims. And we find ourselves in a situation where you have to ask, how are we going to stop it?
That's right. And Melanie, another thing too, just like in custody battles, I'm sure you've heard of, one spouse or the other saying the other spouse abuses the children in order to get the children, things like that. It is such a tragedy in our country that we have become desensitized to human life in general, that it's objectified, that we become objects. Just like I was an object, my birth brother was an object. We weren't people ever. We weren't human. And even in this day and age, you would think that we would progress and say, hey, we need to respect life, we need to protect life. It's hypocrisy that causes hurt and victimization of human rights, because on one hand we say, oh, America the Great, we're the grand, and we have all this stuff.
And I like that you're using the word life, and I find that interesting. How does it affect one's life? Is your life damaged because of that? How does one view their life until they, especially in that gap of time, hopefully, God forbid, they get help if they find themselves in that situation? How do you view your life? How do you value life? How does that tend to affect people who are victims of human trafficking?
Well, as we kind of touched on prior to the show, one incident can definitely have a ripple effect. For example, in my life, since it started from the age of 6 months and went on till age 17, that was the only life I knew. And while I took ownership of my life and I made decisions, when I was out of that situation, I went to school, I went to grad school, I tried to make a difference, do good things. I knew I never wanted to be like the people that had sexually tortured and beat me and done all of those things, or transported me to an uncle's house or whatever, knowing what uncle would do, that kind of thing. But it's still, no matter how healed, no matter how whole you are, and I believe God transforms people because he has transformed my life. Amen. But here's the thing. A few weeks ago, there was an intruder in my house, and my husband was out of town. And I will tell you, the little girl inside freaked out, because now I'm being faced with something that happened a long time ago, and I either want to kill this person or I need to jump out the window or call 911. And it made me, the body memory came back so intensely. I was surprised at how intense, because normally in my life, I don't have a reason to feel that way. I have come a long way, done the work, gone to counseling, my faith, my husband, my amazing friends and people in my life, but not everybody has that, Melanie. And that's the sad part. That's one of the reasons we try to connect our kids up with community members right away. If Ed and I aren't there for them, even though we'll always be as involved in their life as they want us to be, we'll be home or the hub, they still need to have other people in their life that they know are safe, that will help them, even if it's a car repair shop, and maybe they don't need their car repaired, but they need someone safe, or they need help, and they can go to this person or that person, or a bank or a lawyer. So we try to get the community involved as, representatives of safety and protection, kind of like that barrier against harm, if you will. So for me, yes, it affected me. I had a tremendously life-impacting speech impediment on top of the other issues. I was insecure. I know, hard to believe now, but insecure, shy. I went to at least 6 different schools before 8th grade, so constantly having to start over. I was bullied, picked on. I was kind of the nerdy, chatty girl, but nerdy. And so I had to fight for everything, just for those moments where somebody was kind to me or wasn't hurting me, or I had to tell lies, basically, because I was forced to tell lies, even by the people that abused me. So nobody really knew. And it was a very lonely life. It was just tremendously without any substance, so to speak. But I believed somehow if I could survive that, if I made choices, if I kept moving forward, that I would somehow not just survive, but succeed. And I didn't need a special movement. I didn't need special legislation. I didn't need anyone to step in on my behalf, because I had to make the choice. I had to choose to get healthy or to be better. And, I made a poor choice and married somebody that I wouldn't have married had I had the counseling or the help I needed. But God was very good to me. He allowed me to meet the person that has been the most amazing human in my life. But again, I had to work on me first. I had to get myself to a place where I learned how to communicate my needs or my wants without being codependent or, needing that man to make me complete. I had to learn to be complete with or without a man, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And I think there are some people who misconstrue that as saying I don't need a man. It's like, no, that's not it. It's a matter.
No.
It's a matter of being a whole person that can offer yourself to someone else as a whole person. So
absolutely.
And not. And, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead. You're the guest. Please.
It applies. You got me going now. It applies to us as a society. If we are looking for other things to make us as a society whole, we are not whole ourselves. And so when we allow not only trafficking in our own country, but traffickers to come and use American soil as their to do their dirty work or as their playground, so to speak, then we're not doing so well. We're not a great America at that point. We've made huge progress, and I am so proud of the current administration because it's one thing to sign a bill. It's another thing to consistently go after that dog with the bone, so to speak, and say, we just don't want to sign in legislation. We want to do something about this problem, because we are losing children. We're losing teenagers to one of the highest rates of suicide. We're losing women out of parking lots. And yes, and young men and young boys, but you don't hear that very often.
It's very true. You don't hear about it. And, I get frustrated because whenever I feel like whenever I bring this topic up, like on my Facebook page or in social media, there are always some men who come out and say, why do you hate men? Why are you bashing men? And I'm like, I'm not bashing men. I'm just simply trying to express to you all that this is a problem. I'm 48 years old. I should not be dealing with a man touching me inappropriately at this juncture in my life. But yet just last year, still dealing with it. Now, frankly, no woman should ever have to deal with it at all, ever, under any circumstance. And I tried to explain on my Facebook page, I'm like, guys, it's been since puberty. I'm 48. When do I get a break? When do girls get a break? Like at what point can we get a break?
That's right. Exactly. And here's the thing, men, we need you to step up, the good men. We need the good men to step up and step out and tell the other men, this is wrong, this is not right. you need to get yourself together or get some help, because when 50 or 60% of the male population view pornography on a regular basis, what kind of things do you think are going to go through their mind? There are a lot of good men. I am so grateful that my husband not only is a man of God, but a man's man. He works hard. He helps the needy and the poor and all those great things, but not everybody has that. Every single team that we have housed and graduated through our program, Melanie, not one male father in that entire group. Either they're in jail, they're a drug addict, they're the perpetrator, or they simply choose not to be willing to show up. Here's an example. A police officer friend of mine was talking about one of his worst nights that he had on the job, and one of it was he had to pick up 3 different teenagers for various reasons, either being at a pop party or drinking or whatever it was. And by the time he took the first 2 home, he had already had a rough night getting them home. But the third girl he takes home, the dad opens the door. He and the mother are drunk, and they're like, "Why are you bringing her here? We don't care where she is." She was 15, and it's 2 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
So, yes, wow. We are throwing our children literally away to the streets for whatever reason. I could go on story after story, but here's the thing. It's if we do not curtail the free-for-all criminal predators who exploit and profit from their depraved acts against humans, then it is our fault for not standing up.
Indeed, it is. And I will say there was a gentleman on my Facebook page, I wish I could call his name right now, and I apologize, who responded to my post and said that he was in a group, and I think he said a hockey group where they chat and whatever, and one of the guys was joking about inappropriately touching some girl or some woman, and that they all jumped in his case and permanently kicked him out of the group. And apparently the guy's attitude was, "Come on, like none of you guys have ever done it." And apparently everybody in the group was like, "Yeah, no, we don't do that, and you're a loser. Get out of our group." And I said, we need.
Wow.
Yep, exactly. And I said, we need more men like you. I said, I strongly believe, I agree with you, that we need more men to stand up when they hear that kind of talk, to do what that gentleman and his friends did and say, "Dude, that is not cool. It's not cool. It's not funny. It's not cute. Don't do it." And to make sure that there's a man punishment for that, like those hockey guys administered.
Absolutely. And here's the other part. You mentioned it earlier. Some women do lie, and I'm going to say this. I had many opportunities. I haven't actually told this story, I don't think, to anybody, at least not publicly, that I can remember. But when I was 19, I was out of college. I had a job with a hotel chain. The president of that hotel chain had come through the main office where I was working, and he put his hand on me inappropriately. It was witnessed by 8 other people in that little office, and then he repeated the attempts a couple times, even called me into the office he was using temporarily for some, weird reason. And when I wasn't responding the way he wanted me to, he finally let it go. But I was in the process of, do I stand up for myself? What do I do? And I went to each of those 8 witnesses. Not one would stand with me because they did not want to lose their jobs, which I understand. But if we don't support each other, then, nothing gets documented or done. But here's the other part of that story. So that was 30 whatever years ago, more than I can remember. And and now I'm not going to go back and say, "Oh my gosh, that incident ruined my life. I wasn't able to be successful. I wasn't able to finish anything." I'm not going to go back and sue that hotel chain or find the president of that hotel chain and try and get something out of him. For me, in my opinion, that's also wrong, because I have proven that I was still able to move forward and still able to take care of my life, be successful, have a healthy relationship and whatnot, despite that. Now, yeah, would it be great if I could do that and get a boatload of money? Sure, but that's not what my life is centered on. And sometimes, Melanie, I wonder Why now? Why all of these things are coming out? And I only see the ones that make, like I said, the cover of a magazine or that are getting paid somehow for their story. But there are a lot of victims out there that will never have that chance, and that's who I'm for. That's who I advocate for. The ones that are still in the pits, the ones that think they're too dirty or too unimportant to matter.
Exactly, and who never feel safe as a result.
That's right.
That's the thing.
And yes, get help, get healing, get counseling, go to church, talk to friends, whatever it takes. But don't give up, and don't live with such anger and bitterness that you cannot become that productive, valuable, wonderful, beautiful part of humanity that you're designed to be.
Exactly. And your spirituality is just such an important part of this, and a relationship with God is such an important part of this, because when you do feel frustrated and you do feel unsafe and you do feel like there's nothing that you can do, as an educator, and what I was discussing with you before the show that I can't discuss publicly, that I was upset about, when you start to feel defeated and like, is there ever going to be, I asked myself, wow, there really is never going to be a time when a young woman is going to be able to feel safe. And then I thought to myself, that's why Jesus. That's why.
That's right. That's right.
And I was
Absolutely.
like, it's going to be okay, Melanie, because that's why Jesus. That's why. So.
Absolutely. And when people who don't understand that, here's the thing. The one commandment we have ever had is love one another. But what happens when that love has been destroyed, perverted, twisted, and you don't really know what real love is? I think that's what makes it so hard. But what I know is He has never left me or forsaken me, even with all of that stuff going on. If there's a victim out there listening or looking at this right now, I want you to know that He cries when you cry, because it breaks His heart that humans, use their free will to do these ugly things. But there are also humans like you, Melanie, and everyone else that is working towards solutions for this issue that are also good, that can be trusted, that can exhibit and demonstrate love the way it was intended by Jesus.
Indeed. For sure. There was a question in the Facey chat, and I did grab it, John Campbell. I did see it. I was just waiting for a second when I could interject the question. John Campbell in the Facey chat wanted to know, what can we look for as a red flag to spot a victim in plain sight? So I guess what he's saying, like, if you're going along about your everyday life, and perhaps there's somebody who's going through this, who's in hiding or whatever, is there any way that we can spot that person so we can help them?
That's a great question, and it's a loaded one, but I'll do my best, John. So here are a couple of basic things. Usually when there is a younger person, maybe with 30-year-old, well, it used to be 35 to 45 was the profile for a trafficker. Now it's dropped to like 25 to 35-year-old males. It's getting a little younger. But basically, if you see a male with, say, a female, maybe a teenager or 18, 19, 20-year-old even, but I would say a younger teenager, and that teenager doesn't have eye contact with you, or maybe the body language is, they're not very cozy like a father and daughter would be, or brother sister maybe, you can tell that there's not that familial kind of energy going on. So lack of eye contact, a very withdrawn demeanor. Maybe the clothes don't fit them so well or don't look appropriate for them. And a lot of times they just have no communication. But if you see something, say something. And when I mean that, call a hotline, talk to the local authorities in your area, and say, look, if I see this or I suspect, what's the best way to do it here in my town? How do I best communicate? I'm concerned. If it looks urgent, like a lot of times traffickers will use homeless shelters, things like that, to stay overnight in. Maybe they have a U-Haul moving van or something, and it looks like they're moving. Sometimes the victim might try to reach out and say, I don't want to go with that person. find out what the appropriate thing to do is. Don't just take it on yourself to take that person home, right? You want to make sure you get the appropriate help. But a lot of times I never spoke to too many people publicly, especially if I was anywhere near the predator, in my house or out in public. But the other part of that is, do they look disenfranchised from that person? Sometimes you just know that it doesn't fit, whether it's a truck stop or a supermarket. If you see some not aggression, but maybe tension between the two parties, or one, the adult is trying to maybe pull along or strong arm that victim. Those are just subtle signs. There's a lot more to go into, but for now, that would be it. But again, find out what's appropriate from your law enforcement agency where you live. But when you see it and you're not sure about it, it is always better to call and get help than to not.
Indeed. I like that. I think that somebody made a comment in the Facebook chat that concerned me, but I think you may have answered the question I was going to ask about the comment that he made. Somebody in the chat said saving a victim puts one in jail these days. You probably know what he meant by that, but it probably has to do with what you were saying about making sure that you call someone in authority.
Right. I mean, get some education. This is not something where you can look and say, oh, now when I meet the kids that we rescued, do I almost immediately know before they tell me what's happened to them, what has happened? Yes, because I lived it. If I have not lived that, if someone out there has not lived that, it might be a little bit harder. But again, I would not falsely accuse anyone. I would simply say, hey, have you seen that young person around town? Or, is this a stranger? Try and get the information subtly if you can. If you can't, then again, by knowing what you can or can't do in your area from the law enforcement, that should help with that. And there are always hotlines, national hotlines, either for trafficking, child abuse, suicide prevention. Google those, look them up, and then they can also give you more information. And there's also a lot of written resources. But for now, yes, you don't want to falsely accuse somebody. But if you have a gut instinct and you suspect, I would do what I could do to find out what's appropriate.
That makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. Kevin Stuckey brought up Good Samaritan laws, which is an interesting thing to bring up. And I also happen to know that Kevin, who's an avid fan of the show, also is in the trucking industry. So he probably has opportunities to see that type of thing, I would think, as he stops along his route and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, traffickers don't want to stand out. So they're going to try and either use vehicles, like trucking especially. That's an easy way to move people around, containers at ports, docks, things like that, homeless shelters, anywhere where they can kind of get in, get out unnoticed, or they can dress for the occasion. So if they want to pretend they're homeless people, they're going to dress that way, dress their victim that way. They get pretty creative, pretty sneaky, but again, at some point, there will be some action that indicates something is not quite right there. There were people who knew what was happening to me and to my birth brother. Back then, though, they didn't have the word trafficking. They didn't even talk about child abuse, and they definitely would not step forward. It wasn't until years later where a teacher and another adult said, we kind of thought something was wrong, and we're so sorry we didn't say anything. But again, lack of education, lack of knowledge. They didn't know.
That's very, and then sometimes if you know something's up, you don't know quite what, and then you don't know what to do about it.
Exactly. And now there's so many laws and litigation. You can't say this, you can't do that. As we talked about earlier, you can't have this or have that for protection or no protection or for, anything. There's so many restrictions, but we have got to stand up as a country and say enough, okay? We are losing too many citizens to greed, which is one of the reasons for human trafficking, and perversion, which is the second reason. And that one is even more insidious because there's no money transaction, but yet kids are transported all the time to somebody that the family or the transporter knows is going to do certain things to that child. And in my book, in my opinion, that counts as trafficking, even if there's not an exchange of money.
Oh, I agree. I agree with you. So someone in the Facebook chat, I think it was John, said that he's heard of traffickers having such a hold on their victims that even if they go out in public, they don't run because they're so afraid.
Exactly. I have actually had two of the young people that we've rescued that happened to them, and only really through the grace of God, and one through an attempted suicide, which is how we found her. They were able to get out of that. But here's the thing, the traffickers are very patient. They're more patient than we are. They will wait it out even through some of the shelters that will take in victims, young victims of trafficking, the minor age teens. It could be a year that they're in that shelter, but then they're out for a few months on their own, and all of that comes back. And suddenly, who shows up? Here's the life you really need to be in. This is what you know, remember? And it just is an insidious habit. It's kind of like someone that continues to go back to an abuser over and over again, no matter how much help or intercession there is.
That's the perfect analogy.
Yep. So there you go. It's the humanity of it. So our job is to keep as many from having that problem as possible.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're at the close of the show, and we didn't even get to talk about the wall, but I am going to have you back at CPAC next week live from Washington, D.C. So we're definitely going to talk about the wall and the role that the wall and at the borders all have in this human trafficking problem.
Sounds great. You're on. I'm ready.
I cannot wait. How can anyone who's listening to this particular podcast help out Beulah's Place? Is there a website, a link? What can they do?
Yes, that would be great. Our website is beulahsplace.org, which is BEULAHSplace.org. There's information there. There's a donate button if somebody feels led. And, of course, prayer and support is always welcome, especially now that we have this building, and we have greater needs. But we're so grateful for you and the folks that interact with your show and your listeners and what you're doing, Melanie, because the whole focus is to create more awareness, let people know they don't just have to survive, they can thrive if they've been a victim, and that not all of us are just about our own story, that we're out there to advocate on their behalf to help them get through that process in any way that we can.
Amen, Andi. Amen. Thank you so much for all of your work. Thank you. And I am looking forward to meeting you in person and airing live next week, so we can talk about the role that getting this wall built will play in putting a stop to the human sex trafficking. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Andi Buerger, ladies and gents, you are listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. That was Andi Buerger, the executive director of Beulah's Place. And we were talking about the impact of human trafficking on kids' lives as their children in the future in school. We've really covered the gamut, and I'm so blessed to have had her on the show. Big shout out to Eaton Gordon Hill for connecting us. We appreciate you, girl. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. My next guest is going to switch gears completely, maybe lighten things up just a little bit, and talk about how to network your way to career success. No coincidence that I'm going to be at CPAC next week, and probably can use some tips and reminders as to how to maximize my networking next week. So I'm excited to have Diane on the show. We'll be back in a couple of moments.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist. With an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama, operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Right now, you can get the credit you deserve. Just visit MrCreditRepair.biz.
Hello, this
Let
is
their
Diane.
credit repair specialist remove late payments, charge-offs, collections, even old bankruptcies fast and easy. That's MrCreditRepair.biz. Why go anyplace else? Increase your credit score today. At Mr. Credit, you always get a quality service all at our everyday discounted price. Stop getting turned down for cars, credit cards, or even new homes. Visit MrCreditRepair.biz today. That's MRCreditRepair.biz. Your credit repair is our #1 priority.
Service here done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday to Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
Fun things like sports, politics,
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
and all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events? All kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on SHRmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
New show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's no surrender ever, because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. Welcome back on Friday night. Thank you so much for listening. Those of you who missed the first hour, I think I'm going to steal what Lonnie Poindexter says on his show, the second hour. Shame on you. That works out really well. I like it. Shame on you if you missed the first hour. You missed Andi Buerger, Executive Director of Beulah's Place, who talked to us about all things sex trafficking. And she's going to be our special guest broadcasting live from CPAC in the 5 o'clock hour. I'm very excited. It's my first time actually broadcasting live from CPAC. It's my third year at CPAC, and I usually go to just gawk at all the media stars and nerd out at all the my favorite conservative politicos, but I will actually be broadcasting live with two guests like I normally have on my show, and then I will be conducting, right now I think I have 6 mini interviews scheduled, and to which I'm going to use that to do kind of a like CPAC special. So I'm very excited about CPAC next week. I'm actually very nervous too, but I'm very excited about doing all of that at CPAC. It should be a very productive conference. For those of you who, I keep saying CPAC, for those of you who are listening, pardon me, via SHR Media or a download, or just in general don't have that disease called politics and don't know what CPAC is. It is the Conservative Political Action Conference that takes place every year. It is the most popular, prominent conservative conference that takes place every year in DC. It's a big deal. It's usually televised. Everybody who's anybody in the conservative movement is usually there, and me. So I'm looking forward to going to CPAC and hanging out on Media Row and actually broadcasting Money Talk with Melanie live from Media Row at CPAC. And a couple booths down will be like Fox News and Sirius, and it's just like a little bit surreal. That part is always surreal. When you go there and you're on Media Row, they have this place. For those of you who are not necessarily familiar with that conference, they have all of these big conferences like the RNC convention and the Conservative Political Action Conference and all of these other conferences I go to. There is usually an area called Media Row where all the media hang out. So, all if you've seen pictures that I've posted on my social media from previous years in CPAC, and actually they're starting to show up in my Facebook memories now, it's because I was hanging out on Media Row. So if you write or have a podcast like myself, then you can get issued a media pass depending on how, quite frankly, popular or whatever, however you want to put it, your media is. So you can get offered a media pass, and then you can hang out on Media Row. And by hang out, I mean, just like gawk at all the people that you see on TV all the time and try to get pictures with them and politicians and all that good stuff. So it's a good thing. And Doug in the Facey chat mentioned, I hope they have adequate bandwidth. That was an issue one year. I always travel with my own internet connection, but because I'm going to be broadcasting live, my understanding is that will not be a problem this year. We've already checked that out, and hopefully it's going to be all good. But either way, I always travel with my own internet, because what kind of computer science professor would I be if I could not broadcast my show because of something as silly as not having internet? So we're not having that. I will have my own, and it's all good. I really don't travel anywhere without internet. Like I trust no one. I don't like look at the hotel and go, oh, they have free internet. No need to have an internet connection. No, not me. So no, internet will be fine. Bandwidth should be fine. We have been working on this, our arrangements. I'm not by myself. I'm with a group of urban conservative media who will be broadcasting from CPAC, and we've been working on this as a group for a few weeks now. So it's a big deal. Lonnie Poindexter from Lion Chasers with Lonnie Poindexter will be broadcasting live from CPAC, I believe. Kenneth McClinton from the Exceptional Conservative Show will be broadcasting live, and other folks for whom I don't know personally, but I do happen to know those two particular gentlemen, and I know that they will be broadcasting live from the same area that I'm broadcasting from. So I'm very excited that that's going to happen. And as you can hear, I'm kind of starting to lose my voice. I'm trying to make sure that that does not happen. But yeah, that's going to happen at CPAC next week. If you're not following me on Facebook, like on my show page at Money Talk with Melanie, you should be doing that. By the way, I only have one spot left on my regular Facebook page, but I'm sure I'll say something to free up a couple of spots at some point. But right now I'm at 4,999 friends on Facebook, but you can certainly follow me and you can certainly like the show page. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Money Talk Mel. If you'd like to follow my political leanings and musings and basic sarcasm, you can do so at NJGOP Diva. That's at NJGOP Diva on Twitter. And also, I don't talk about this much because my website's not as dynamic as I would like it to be quite yet, but it's up and running. It's there. I guess I should tell you that it's there. It's called MoneyTalkWithMelanie.com conveniently. And if you ever want to go there and figure out who's going to be on the show next, or you want an easy and convenient way to get a hold of some of the downloads or some of the most recent shows, you can do that at MoneyTalkWithMelanie.com. And finally, if you don't want to search throughout Facebook to look for my Facebook Lives, I have started a YouTube channel, and guess what the channel is called? Money Talk with Melanie. So if you go on YouTube and look for Money Talk with Melanie, you can find all of the live videos that I do with my guests, and you can hear the guests talking, and you can see my smiling or sometimes not smiling face speaking to my guests and broadcasting live. So that is on YouTube. The YouTube channel is open right now. I only have like 14 subscribers because it's only been up like a month or two, and I've been trying to upload old videos and then upload the newer videos. So subscribe to that if you would, so that I look like I have more than 14 people who actually listen to my show. That would be great. All right, that having been said, my guest for the second hour, I'm very excited. Her name is Diane. I'm sure she's going to tell me if I'm pronouncing her name wrong or not. Diane Huth, or Huth, I'll see in a minute. She's the accidental career coach. Very excited to have her on, because she's going to talk to us about how we can network our way to career success. I'm sure she's going to tell us that networking is a very important part of a successful career and a successful business, quite frankly. And so I'm happy to have her on the show today. She's a go-to resource whenever jobs are in the news, including the very first Friday when federal employment stats were announced. And she releases employment tips in TV-ready video, quality audio, and print releases distributed through National Wire release and posting on DianeHuth.com. So without further ado, Diane Huth, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, how are you?
I'm wonderful, Melanie. Thank you so much. That's perfect.
Oh, good. I love it when I get it right.
Yes, great to be with you and your wonderful followers here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm super excited. This is the second hour of the show, and it's all. And I'm really excited to have you on the show. Particularly, it just so happens to be, as you probably heard me say, the week before CPAC. And quiet as it's kept, and you probably are well aware of this, that whenever you go to these conferences, no one ever really goes to the conferences. They go to do what? They go to network, right? Does anybody actually ever see the conference? No. And networking is key to your career success, to your business success if you have a business. And so I'm delighted to have you on the show to talk to you about that. Is there any? I did a very brief introduction to your bio. Can you tell the audience a bit about your background, since this is your first time here?
Yes, I'm called the Accidental Career Coach. I'm not really a human resources person or recruiter. I'm a brand marketing person. I've worked forever in branding with corporations like J&J and Rose Tobacco and Filet Carnation, CBS Television. A couple years ago, I started teaching at 3 universities, and I discovered that my bright, talented students didn't have a clue on the job. So I went home and took a presentation, grew up seminar, webinar, now is a book called Brand New to Land Your Dream Job. And I teach everybody how all the skills you need step by step to find a job. Then, Melanie, what happened is all my baby boomer friends, because I'm old, all my baby boomer friends came out of the woodwork and said, can you help me find a job? I've been out of work for 2 years. I can't get an interview because I'm too old. And I discovered the baby boomer employment crisis. So I wrote my last book, which is Reinvent Your Career, Beat Age Discrimination to Land Your Dream Job, to help all of us baby boomers, there's 32 million of us in the workforce, find a job and keep a job.
Oh, that's excellent. And that is a big thing. When I was looking for work a couple of years ago, I started thinking that was the case. And I took a few things off my resume for that reason, because I didn't want people to know how old I was.
Right. There's no concern about that today. So, but everybody deserves a good job. And the best way to do it, as you said, is to network your way to career success. I recommend that 50% of all jobs are landed through networking. The other half through online job boards, which is ferocious out there. But the easiest, simplest way to find a job today in any industry is to network your way to career success.
Now you hear, I've heard that all the time. I've heard that a lot. I'm trying to think if I've ever actually, you know what? I'm getting ready to tell a story. Both jobs that I have now, I would say I probably had through networking. So I'm going to be quiet about that now. I was going to say that I have not found, that hasn't been my experience, but I would be telling you that would be a complete fabrication.
You know, the number one way to get hired is to be recommended to your employer by someone who knows you.
Yep.
And the number one way is somebody else who works in that same company. So it doesn't even need to be a professional in your field, but somebody who works in the same company recommends you within the company. That's the number one way. But I think the easiest way, and I tell everybody, and nobody knows this, the best way to find a job is to network through your professional trade associations. Every job, every industry has multiple trade associations. They're generally have a local chapter. They may be a national organization, but they have local chapters with local meetings. And when you do go there, you're meeting, having lunch or having drinks or talking with the people who are going to hire you, because that's where the people in your industry congregate. And they go there for socialization, but very importantly, they go there for information. All professional organizations are charged to have like a speaker committee, and they're supposed to be bringing in speakers either locally or from around the country who are going to bring you new information, new insights, new technology, helping you become more professional. So that's where the people you want to hang around with are going once a month for lunch. It's like so logical, so easy, but very few people look at it that way.
It's very true. And there are some people in my sphere that I tell that to. I'm like, you really you got to get out. Got to start getting out more. Like you really do. That's how you meet people. That's how you develop your Rolodex, and that's how people think of you for different things.
Absolutely.
It really is true. Now, how does your personal branding fit into this? I find you said that you found this with your college kids. I actually am also an adjunct professor, and you certainly learn a lot about what's going on with the younger generation when you work with them. I'm a high school teacher and an adjunct professor in addition to this. So I hear you on that. And you try to talk to them about the importance of their personal branding. When I say personal branding, what am I referring to? What does all of that entail? Because I get the sense that people don't quite completely understand all that their personal brand entails.
That's right. We don't tend to think of ourselves as objects, as things, but if you look at yourself objectively, as if, for example, I am a bottle of fine wine, right? Is my label going to be old and crumpled and dusty? Am I going to be found on the bottom shelf where nobody sees it? Or if I'm going to be up visibility, that's being at the right place at the right time, refreshing your look? Are people going to be talking about me? Are people going to be able to sample me? Because let's say if you volunteer on a board or at a networking organization, the people that you care about will get to sample your professional services. They'll get to know you. So if you look at yourself as if you are a bottle of wine or whatever the product that you want, that you relate to, you'll see that the same skills and the same techniques and the same tools that we brand marketers use to sell products are the same ones that you would use to sell yourself. If you look at it objectively, it's so much easier to understand.
That makes a lot of sense. That truly does make a lot of sense. So now, when I first, this is the third year, I think, of Money Talk with Melanie. And when I first started out, I'm very blessed to have people who were already in the media, who were my friends, who've been doing this for quite some time. And they were giving me lots of advice on my personal brand, things to do, things not to do, kind of do's and don'ts. Do you find that there are do's and don'ts that can apply to everybody, or can people develop their own do's and don'ts? What do you think about that as far as their brand?
There are rules that you need to follow. Number one, your reputation is the most important thing. So you must live your life and be, as a professional and personally, with utmost integrity, because your reputation is what people say about you when you leave the room, and you don't want there ever to be any kind of a negative reputation. So your integrity is very important. Your brand awareness is important. People need to know who you are. There's a difference. People say, what's your brand reputation versus a network? A network is who you know. Your reputation is who knows you.
Oh.
You want to be out there so people know who you are and recognize who you are and engage you as a leader. And you can do that very easily through volunteer activities. Again, easily in your own profession, through a trade association, but nonprofit organizations, boards, community activities, anything that you do, Rotary Club, business, chambers, whatever your business is or whatever your profession is, go out and go where other people who have similar things in common congregate, and then take a leadership role in that so people can get to know you, and so that you create a reputation of, this is a person who I can trust. People do business with people that they know, they like, and they trust, and that's who they're going to hire, right? So you've got to create knowledge, awareness of who you are. They got to know you. They've got to like you, so you've got to learn to be likable. There are some things that you can do to be likable, and then they've got to learn to trust you.
Now, I like what I'm gonna hone in on what you said about being likable, because I think that this, at least I find this to be I personally find this to be a dicey proposition. The thought of being likable, because everyone's not going to like you, right?
Not everybody will like you, but there are things you can do to be likable.
Okay. Like what are your suggestions?
A number of things. Number one is learn how to engage appropriately with people. You go to a networking event, you reach out and make people feel comfortable. You shake hands, and you learn how to pronounce your name properly. A lot of people don't even know how to introduce themselves properly. We're so used to having, I know who I am. I'm Diane Huth, right? But if you don't know who I am, so I reach out and say, hi, I'm Barbara Jacobson. You don't know who it is. People can only remember 3 syllables at a time. So you say, hi, I'm Barbara Jacobson. How are you? So that you repeat your name, and it's memorable. And then if you have a mnemonic or a memory-inducing device, you use it. I have a friend named Brooke Carey, and she introduces herself as, I'm Brooke, like a babbling brook, and Carey like Mariah Carey, but she's a lot younger and prettier than I am, Brooke Carey. You're going to remember that name because she has painted a visual picture in your mind of 2 reminders of who she is. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Now, I think that I appreciate that more now than I did when I was a lot younger, because you brought back a memory of someone who introduced themselves to me at one time, and they said, my name is Eileen. And she said, like Eileen, and she pointed to her eye and leaned, and I thought it was the most ridiculous thing that anyone had ever done when they ever introduced themselves to me. But
you remembered it.
In my defense, I was like 23. And
you remembered all these years later. You remember that woman's name because she gave you a visual stimuli that you can relate to. And we relate visually much more than we do audio, right? So anything you can do. If you have a business card, everybody must have a business card, right? I recommend that you have your photo on a business card because people will remember it.
Okay, so that's not, I put my photo on my business card, but I felt like that was like, I really hesitated because I felt like it was super vain. But then I felt the same way. I'm like, I wanted people to remember because I have all these business cards. My thought was really strictly logical. You know, I leave these conferences and I have 50 business cards and I cannot remember who is who. So that's why I put my picture on there because my thought was when they look at this, they're going to remember it was me.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a job, especially so.
That makes sense. Okay. So, all right. So that's good. Oh my gosh. I remember what Eileen looks like. I remember the expression on her face when she said it. You're right. I can't really argue with that. I know it was 20 years ago. I really can't argue with that.
There are also things on a business card. You can put a visual reminder. So, for example, Don Fox, he has a picture of a fox on his card. I have a friend named, last name is Diamond, so he has a picture of a diamond. So you can do something very visual, right? And that makes it so much easier. You can also brand yourself color-wise. Years ago, I met a woman and she was with the other party, believe it or not, and I met her at a social event, and her name was Carmen Rojo. And rojo in Spanish means red. I'm in San Antonio. We all speak Spanish here, right?
Right.
But she only wore red. She had a red dress. She had a wear suit, red purse, red shoes. She wore red, which was her name. And the only time you ever saw her was red. So she branded herself chromatically to match her name. I once worked with a man named Mr. Green, and he only carried green pens, and he always signed his name in a green ink. So look at yourself and your brand and your name and say, what can I do to become instantly memorable to a stranger that I introduce myself to?
Wow. I've seen people do that, and I always thought they were just a little nutty. But I do remember them. Like I've seen what you're saying. Like you've probably heard me talking about the Conservative Political Action Conference and the Open. And I see people doing stuff like that at the conference. And I always thought they were just a little something. And apparently what they are is a lot of smart. So, not a little crazy, but a lot of smart with their branding.
That's right. You got to stand out. And you want to give people tools that will make them easy to remember you in the same way you need to remember other people. The rudest thing you can do is not recognize somebody, right? Or you meet someone you don't remember their name. And I am awful at remembering people's names. Unless I write the name down, I cannot remember it. It's this learning thing, you know. I don't learn audio. I learn in writing and looking at things. So here's a little rule to help people, or a tool or technique to help you learn other people. I like to network with other people. So I was president of a bunch of clubs and associations, and people knew me, who I was, and they would come up and say, hi, Diane, how are you? And I would look at this person and not have a clue who she is. Does that ever happen to you?
Terrible. I'm terrible with
No,
names.
never.
Yes.
Never.
Yeah.
So, the way you get around this, is the rudest thing you can do is say, you look so familiar, but what's your name? I mean, that's so embarrassing.
Very.
So instead you say, oh, you look wonderful. Do you know my friend Mary over here? Hi. And Mary's going to stick out her hand and say, hi, I'm Mary Jones. And the new person's going to say, I'm Valerie Johnson. And you say, Valerie, how are you doing? She just gave you her name when she was introducing herself to your friend.
Yes, I love
How's
it.
that for a trick?
That's a good trick. I actually have used that when I got stuck in a bind. I used it the other night. I was at this thing, and my mom happened to come with me. And when I got stuck, that's what I did. Have you met my mom?
I haven't.
Have you met my mom,
Carol?
That's exactly what I did. I said, have you met my mom, Carol? And then they would introduce themselves. Yeah. I'm really terrible with names too. It's just bad. No, that's a great trick.
there's another tip that's real easy. I have a whole bunch of tips in my book about networking and being likable. And the number one thing is to realize it's not about you, it's about them. People want to talk about themselves. And so the way to influence people and get known and likable is not to sit and tell charming stories about yourself. It is to ask other people open-ended questions that get them talking about themselves. Because at the end of the day, if you engage them in a conversation that they can express their opinion or show their expertise or show something good about themselves, they're going to think you're a wonderful conversationist.
Yes, you just love to talk so much, and actually you just talk the whole time. No.
When you're networking, the rule of thumb should be to listen 75% of the time and only talk 25% of the time, and that goes against everything in our nature. But really, if you try and follow that rule, your life will be so much easier in networking.
That's true. That is very true, and that's in business and in your career for sure. It's oh gosh.
There's another way that I like to, a couple other tips for networking, because this is so important. You know, nobody teaches this stuff. You learn after 40 years, and it's like, my life would have been so much better if I'd learned this 39 years ago, right? I like to team network. Nobody in their right mind likes to go into a group of strangers by themselves. I have never met anybody who does. I don't. So bring a friend or colleague who does not necessarily compete directly with you, and then you can introduce each other. So I have a friend, Marie, and she's a graphic designer. So we go out to marketing association events. We do different parts of marketing. So I can introduce and say, hey, John, I want to introduce you to my friend Marie. She is the best graphic designer. She does all my artwork. We've worked together for 10 years, and I can absolutely tell you she's a fabulous graphic designer and artist. And Marie turns out and says, Diane, you're too kind. You are absolutely the best marketer I've worked with. We've done such wonderful things together. You are brilliant and breakthrough and creative, and it's just a pleasure to work with you. So Marie has said great things about me. I've said great things about Marie, and I haven't had to toot my own horn, right?
That's very good stuff. That's very good stuff.
Hey, it's so much easier.
It is. How do you get past? Actually, no. Let me. I'm gonna skip that. I'll get back to that question. When it comes to your branding, and we've talked a lot about the on-site networking kind of thing, what about the obviously social media and electronic networking, which I guess if you can call it that, right?
Right.
It is very popular, but there is an aspect to that. Do you have any recommendations as to how you go about that? Some do's and don'ts in that area?
Lots of them, of course. Number one is you have to have a consistent brand. So if your name is Nick Long, it should be Nick Long everywhere. It shouldn't be Nicholas Long, Nicholas J. Long, Nicholas Johnson Long, right? You need to have a consistent name across all your media presence, and you need to figure out what your name is, and then it needs to be in your Gmail address, and everybody should have Gmail. You need to have a Gmail address, a LinkedIn page, a Facebook page, all of them in that same consistent name, and that needs to be the name that you use for your resume and for all your things. You have to come up fairly early in life and figure out what is going to be my long-term personal brand, because everything I do professionally has to reflect that name, or people will lose me along the way, right?
Yes.
For women, I recommend that, and a lot of people aren't married, you know, divorce is awful, so I recommend that all women, they use their maiden name as their middle name, and then they put their husband's name at the end, so you don't lose it, but you need to figure this out fairly quickly. So in my case, my maiden name was Kloss, and I got married to Mr. Huth, so my name is Diane Kloss Huth. So that is my permanent name. So people who knew me before I got married could find me with my maiden name there, and then people who I met through my husband could find me. When I got divorced from my husband many years ago, then you have to make a decision. Do I want to go back to my maiden name, which means rebranding myself professionally at all levels, or do I want to keep that name?
And
so
it
if
is.
you think of everything from diplomas and driver's license and Facebook pages and resumes and LinkedIn pages. Think about your name as an important part of your brand.
People have well, I shouldn't say people, I should say men. Have no clue. You're talking to somebody who's been married twice. So they have no clue. And I guess that's why God only really intended you to do that one time and one time only. What an absolute nightmare that whole name change thing is. So, right. I'm so glad that my brand is Money Talk with Melanie. And on my personal page, it's Melanie Teresa. And that's it. No more last names. No, I can't. Yeah, it's Melanie. I mean, it's Melanie. It's Melanie Collette, which most people do know that. But it's a lot. It's very and to go back and brand yourself, and then you have a segment of people who think it's just really disrespectful not to. I mean, I'm 48 years old. I'm almost 50. What if I get married when I'm 52? Am I really supposed to change my name and rebrand all my stuff?
Probably not.
Right.
Choice has to do with children. When I got divorced, I had a young child, and it gets real confusing for schools and teachers. If your name is not the same as your child's name and they call you the wrong name. So I chose to keep my married name because I had a child. If you don't have a child, then it's a little bit different. But I believe that for children, it makes it a lot easier if you keep their name when life transitions, just to help the family, help them with their brand identity and their personal identity of who they are.
True. Now, I know someone who is very active politically, and things in politics can get dicey, and especially in this climate. And his son has the same name as he does, and so to protect his son from any of the backlash that he gets, he makes sure that his name is spelled all the way out. And he started using senior once he started really getting involved in politics, because he didn't want his son, because they had the same name, he just didn't want his son to there to be repercussions on his son because they had the same name, and because he can find himself in some dicey situations politically. So names,
the world's half and half, so half the people are going to like you and half the people aren't going to like you. So you might as well make sure that you protect your family in that way. That makes tons of sense.
Exactly. It really does. But the whole name thing is really, it's important. And I've seen this where you're looking for someone, especially with some of my guests, actually, like you're looking for somebody. I always look for all my guests' social media, right? Just because I want to make sure that I tag them, that I share it with them and that kind of thing. And sometimes their social media is really inconsistent, like you just said. And then if it is, how can it's very hard to find a person when their brand is not consistent. That's why I was joking. You were in the first hour of the show, I was talking about all the different ways. It might have been this hour, 2-hour show, talking about all the ways that you can reach me. And I always joke because I feel like I say, when I start doing that housekeeping part of the show, I feel like I say Money Talk with Melanie 25 times because, on Twitter, it's at Money Talk Mel, on Facebook, it's Money Talk with Melanie, the website's Money Talk with Mel. But that consistency is important.
It really is, in everything you do. And you need to decide if your name is a usual or unusual name. If your name is Nancy Johnson, I can tell you there's going to be a million Nancy Johnsons out there. So you're going to have to do a Google search of Nancy Johnson or whatever your name is and see how many people show up with that name. So you may have to choose, in today's global online environment, to choose something to distinguish yourself. You might want to use your middle name. I have a client, and his name is the exact same name as the former governor. So he actually, in all of his branding, he's a CPA, so he says his name, CPA.
Oh, nice, right.
Consistent.
I have a friend who's like that too.
Competitive environment. Google yourself and see how many people have your name, and then find ways. And then you want to make sure that you reflect that in everything you do, all of your touch points.
Indeed, I have a friend who's in media, who does a lot more media than I do. Actually, his name is John Burnett, and we were talking about his branding one time, and his branding is he actually separates his branding because he has a consulting company and he does politics. And so the branding for his, which is real smart actually, the branding for his politics, for his political stuff, is different than the branding for his business. So unless you knew him, you wouldn't know that it was even the same guy, unless you knew him. So
that makes a lot of sense.
Which makes a lot of sense, right? Like I think his branding for his politics and for his media that he does is I am John Burnett, and then his business is something completely different. But all the branding for his consulting business is all the same. And when we talked about it, he said it was because, you know, his politics and when he's a pundit on different shows and things like that, that's him, that's his opinion. So he does I am John Burnett. But we know with his business, that's all business. So he markets that, you know, in a completely different way so that everybody knows that this is the business side, this is the consultant side. And this is you're getting the business consultant, you're not getting a pundit or opinion when you're dealing with this entity. So, which I think is really smart.
That's really good.
Right?
Wow.
That's good, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
I don't know how much time we have, but I would love to share a tip with your listeners about how to be likable and some of the tips of likability.
Oh, yeah. Are you still there? You're breaking up a little bit. For some reason you started breaking up all of a sudden. Oh, there you are.
Better?
You're back. Yep.
Okay. All right. I'd like to share something that a lot of people don't think about. To me, there are 4 different ways things can impact your likability.
Oh, you're breaking up again. Did you move?
Oh no.
Okay, there you go. I don't know why that's happening. Maybe it's something on the connection. Go ahead.
I will not move.
Okay.
4 ways to get to know your future employer, and one of them is affinity. A lot of people don't understand affinity, and we as primal creatures, we want to learn if somebody, when we meet them, is a friend or a foe, and this goes back to the caveman days, right? So you're looking for common bonds. So whenever you meet people, you want to try and listen. Is there anything we have in common? I think a lot of people confuse race, gender, ethnicity with affinity, right? Because I'm going to find anybody common bonds. Anybody ever meet any people in the military? If you've ever met anybody who was in the Marines, boy, immediate bonding, right?
Right.
Because they have something in common, and they'll look for common bonds. Men, anytime you see men walk into another man, they're going to talk about sports because sports is a common bond, right? So they're going to look about, hey, do you like how was that Giants game? Oh, I don't watch that. Well, how about baseball? You know, so they're going to be looking for the sport that you want. They can get together and say, hey, I'm just like you. I like the same things that you do. So it can be school. School is very important. Gender is very important, right? Women like to hang around with women. Guys go and do guy talk. So that's important. But when you meet somebody, try and see if you can find a bond of affinity, anything you have in common. So did you go to the same school? Are you in the same profession? Do you have anything in the same background? And if you find like people who went to the same high school together, all of a sudden they have so much to talk about, right? Because they went to the same school. So as a tip, think about affinity and try and identify anybody you meet and you want to impress, you want to be likable. See if you can find some common ground because that immediately erases the barrier of being a stranger and puts you on the inside socially. Isn't that easy to understand?
No, it is. And that's a great tip. I had a couple of questions in the Facebook chat. Let me ask you. One of the questions from John Campbell, who is one of my sponsors, by the way. Thank you, John Campbell, for being a sponsor. And if you want to get in touch with John Campbell at Cards for Biz Now, cards number 4, BIZNOW @gmail.com for his personal touch services, you may do so that way. I just thought I'd do that quick live read plug. He asked a question in the Facey chat, and the question was, where did I put it? It was just there. Oh, here we go. What is the best opening line you have heard at a networking event for business that broke the ice? It's a good one.
Well, what I used when I got here, I didn't know anybody. I moved to San Antonio 16 years ago from Florida. Did not know a soul. I was a complete stranger. And I walked in and networked with people, and I would stick out my hand to strangers and say, "Hi, my name is Diane Huth. I do this." And I'm a new Texan. I got here as fast as I could. You know, Texans like that. But asking people questions is good. I don't have a canned line. Maybe I should figure out one. I introduce myself. I'm Diane Huth, the accidental career coach. And then people immediately say, "Why are you an accidental career coach?" It leads them to ask a question so we can start talking.
That's good.
So if you want to use a moniker, a nickname, claim something that explains what you do, and you introduce yourself that way that piques interest, that's a great way to start a conversation.
I'm going to start introducing myself as the Business Diva. That is my moniker. I don't use it because it feels, I love my moniker, but it feels like a little too uppity. But I'm not the one who named myself the Business Diva. By the way, also not the one who named myself the NJGOP Diva. Those were both names given to me by people who like me, I think.
When you do that, people will be you'll be memorable. And then people can say, "Well, why are you a diva?" And then you can say, "Hey, I'm a talk show host, or I do this." It gives you something, a hook to start a conversation.
I'm doing that this CPAC. I will let you know how it turns out. Next weekend, I'm definitely doing that. Another question that's in the Facey chat. What ways do you follow? Do you use with people you meet at networking? I may be reading that question wrong. It says, what ways do you follow us with? Oh, he must mean up. And what ways do you follow up with people you meet at networking events? Oh, that's another great question.
I do not do it as well as I should. And the advice that I give is, number one, you only need to meet 3 people. Okay? A lot of people they go to a networking event, they get overwhelmed. There's 100 people. They run around introducing themselves and spreading out cards. No. You need to truly engage with 3 people and find out who they are, what they do. Ask open-ended questions so that they have the opportunity to edify you, to give you information. They'll feel so smart. And then at the end of the day, of course, business card with your name on it. And then at the end of the day, you should go home and jot them a quick email saying, "Thanks so much. I enjoyed meeting you, and I enjoyed learning about, feedback, something that they have." If you want to make a call to action, say, "I'd love to get together and have coffee next week. Would you have any time on Wednesday or Thursday afternoon?" You have place a call to action. And then you should go to LinkedIn. If it's a business contact, go to LinkedIn and like them on LinkedIn and give them a little note. Say, "Hey, it was a pleasure to meet you."
Yep, I definitely do that. I go through it, but I don't engage with 3. Yeah. I usually have a pile of cards, and I go through the cards, and I go to LinkedIn, and I try to connect with everybody whose card I have.
I don't do it well enough. That is what I teach. I don't always practice what I teach. And if you have to do it right away that night, because if you wait and say, "I'll do it tomorrow," it'll never happen. You have to do it that night. Discipline yourself before you go to bed. I'm going to jot out these notes because otherwise the morning's going to come and bury you and you will never do it.
You're right, though, because a lot of times I don't end up doing that for like 2 weeks. There's so many. It's over. Like a conference like the one I'm going to next weekend, I'm going to meet easily, I don't know, 50 people. Easily. I'm going to see tons of people that I know that I've met before that are there every year, but I'm going to meet a lot of new people. And I typically have a handful of cards. And then sometimes I find cards that I forgot I had, and I go back and try to find them on social media. But it can be a lot. So you're saying, even though you do that, make it your goal to really engage with at least, well, 3 people, like meaningfully engage.
Meaningfully engage. We don't want a social butterfly who's just, peppering the room with cards and trying to get cards from everybody. You want to engage. 3 meaningful conversations is much better than 15 random passing out cards and grabbing cards. So, and the way you do it, remember, we talked about ask them questions about themselves, not intrusively, you're not a stalker, but you might ask their opinion about things. Like, I'm really interested, I'm new here. Well, who are the 3 best ad agencies that you know, or who would you recommend for something or other? I'm concerned about this new thing I've heard about. Do you have any insight or experience with this technology or this program? Who is the expert in your industry about such and such? Ask them information that's not personally intrusive, perhaps, but that they can showcase their expertise and they can feel really smart making a recommendation or giving you some information.
That's a really good idea. I like that one. And make sure that it stays professional. Now, are there some absolute no-nos? Like if you're on, one of the things that I was told when I was brand new to the game is to be really careful about my Facebook page. I generally don't use profanity or anything like that. That's just a rule of thumb on any social media. In my personal opinion, this is not to anybody who does that. Please don't get upset with me for saying that. It's just my personal rule. I don't think it's appropriate in a group setting. And not for nothing, I'm friends with a lot of pastors and things like that. So I have a no profanity rule on my Facebook page. But one of the things that I find about social media is that it tends to be a little bit of a fantasy land. And I like to be I shouldn't say as authentic as possible. Well, yeah, as authentic as possible without being without TMI. Because, I don't know. I think that the people there, one time this is what prompted this. One time someone said to me, "You live such a glamorous life." And I'm like, okay, I'm really doing this wrong if you think I live a glamorous life. Like, I'm totally giving the wrong impression here on my Facebook page. And I think particularly and this is just opinion, particularly when you're in the media, that there should be some authenticity to your brand. And feel free to give me lots of pushback on this. What do you think about that?
Well, my 3 rules of thumb for most people is do not ever talk or post about politics, about religion, or about sex, if possible. Those you are building a professional persona. Those are 3 things that can get you in trouble. In your case, part of your platform is that you're a conservative journalist, so it makes sense that you would profess conservative views. But I'm not in that market. I don't want to be branded a conservative or liberal. I don't want to lose half of my following or my potential network because we are so polarized today that I would suggest that for the man in the street, generally you avoid politics. And I have had to stop posting anything political, and I grit my teeth, and then I, shoot off an email to 4 friends who have the same political, feeling I do, but I don't put it in a public space with social media. So that's one thing. Profanity, also very important. Also, anything sexual or suggestive. You don't know how many young people looking for a job, have pictures of themselves dancing naked, on a bar at spring break. It's like, you want to shoot yourself in the
butt. Is that inappropriate? Is that not appropriate? Are you saying that's not a good idea?
I think that is not appropriate.
Well, listen, I teach it in high school. I've told my students this repeatedly. And then after they graduate, now I'm really dating myself, I tell them they can't follow me on social media. They can't friend me until after they graduate. So, they will. And then I'll see some like ridiculous tweet or something, and I'll message them, and I'm like, "Did you learn nothing? Why are you not listening to me? Take that tweet down." You're always a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, take that tweet down. What are you doing? Do not talk about you being drunk on Twitter. What are you thinking?
Yep. And I want to tell you something. One of the reasons that when you apply for a job, go back to the job application. Maybe you did an online job application and you filled out all the forms and you gave them the resume with all the details. They're going to want you to sign a job application and date it. And the reason they do that is an employer has the legal right then to investigate all sorts of things about you and look at your social media and pull credit reports and pull police reports and criminal activity stuff. So all that stuff is available online today. And it's in perpetuity. Anything that you see on social media is there forever. Put your name in social media and in like Google, and then you can go back in infinite number of pages to see where you appeared 10 years ago.
Yep. That is so very true. Well,
you can control your own Facebook page, but if it hits Google, I mean, you do not ever get to edit out Google.
Oh, no.
So you must be conscious of everything that you do today is archived forever in social media.
Yep.
So you really have to look at yourself and say, is a future employer going to be offended or disgusted or disappointed in whatever I do? And if everybody takes the viewpoint, I don't care if you're right or left or in the middle, that 50% of everybody you meet, we're split right down the middle. 50% are going to take a contrarian view, that you risk alienating 50% of the world by taking a political stance. It's not worth the investment. Don't do it.
That's what somebody in the Facebook chat said. Based on your criteria, I'd never be on social media ever again. Which is true. But listen, I'm the vice president of the Federation of Republican Women here in New Jersey. I'm a vice chair of PR for the National Federation of Republican Women. I've been like in Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. Kind of hard for me to for my political views. Kind of hard for me to duck and dodge that.
Activist as part of your brand.
Right.
That's part of your business and your brand, so that's perfectly legitimate.
Right, right.
I'm a career coach. I'm not going to say what my party is because it's going to offend half of the people out there.
No, I completely get that, and that is perfectly wise. We're toward the close of the show. Please tell people where they can get your book, where they can contact you if they'd like to follow you on social media, that kind of thing.
Oh, I would love people to follow me. My website is my name, www.Diane, D-I-A-N-E, Huth, Huth.com. And I have a Facebook page that's Brand You Guide, because my first book is called Brand You to Land Your Dream Job. All my books are available at Amazon.com. Just put my name in there, and there's about 7 that will pop up. And can I give your listeners a gift?
Please.
Oh, I have so many. I have to pick which one I want to give them. I have a brand new resume building cheat sheet. It's a 2-page handout that will help you learn what you need, learn all about the job search and what recruiters are looking for and how they react to your resume. And then it's a page that'll give you the 6 key parts of a resume and what they should look like. It is available at www.resumebuildercheatsheet.com. Resumebuildercheatsheet.com, and that's a free gift of that PDF download to anybody who'd like to go check it out.
Nice. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. I put that link in the Facey chat. If I spelled everything right, it looks like I did. Thank you. I did. It just popped up. Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure I put that in the podcast when I post it as well.
Well, Melanie, this has been way too much fun. And the next time you want to talk about something that has to do with careers or money, call me. I'm here.
I sure will. Diane Huth, thank you so much for being on the show today. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, and I want to make sure that I thank my sponsors, the tax mama, the one and only Eva Rosenberg. She rocks very hard. You all know her very well. If you have not picked up her book, Trump Tax Cut, you better do so. We're in the thick of things. Your personal guide to new tax law, make sure you pick it up. Robert Houston, MrCreditRepair.biz. If you want your credit repaired in 21 days, make sure you reach out to him. And then, of course, John Campbell, make sure Cards for Biz Now. Personalize your business contact with John Campbell at cards, the number 4BIZ now at gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you are listening via a download, if you're listening in SHR Media Land, if you are listening on any other platform, I appreciate you very much. Remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.